off by posing a question for you. And my question for you is, as you wake up every single day and you report to your job, as you wake up every day and you report to your career, as you wake up every day as an entrepreneur and you get up and you go after your customers and your clients and you look to make an impact, I ask you this question and this question only: what exactly are you fighting for on a daily basis? What makes it worth it for you to keep pushing forward? What makes it worth it for you to push through when things get difficult? What is it that encourages you to get up day after day and fight for your goals and your dreams, to fight for the things that you're looking to make happen? In other words, what are you fighting for? And so that's a question I believe that every single one of us has to be able to answer, because I believe oftentimes the real distinction between those who have extraordinary success and those who are just simply going through the motions is that those who are committed to success and those who are achieving success, they've got something worth fighting for. And they know and they are crystal clear on what that thing is. And for people who unfortunately do not accomplish their goals and their dreams, for people who throw in the towel prematurely, for people who tend to give up, the reason why they give up is, guess what? They don't know what they're fighting for, and they're not crystal clear on why it's worth it for them to stay in the arena of life. And so when they find themselves in the midst of a fight and they get punched by life, and they get hit with something that they didn't expect, like getting let go from their job. They get hit with something they didn't expect, like losing out on a client. They get hit with something that they totally didn't expect, like a change in the actual field or industry in the market that they're in. They get hit with something that they totally didn't expect, was something health-wise or in a relationship. Guess what happens? They tap out. They step out of the ring. They give up on their goals and their dreams. But I believe that those who know why that they're in the arena of life, those who understand why they're in the middle of the fight, when they get hit, when they find themselves under some difficult circumstances, when they find themselves under a stressful situation, they know why they're fighting. And so here's what they do. Even though they feel the pain, even though that they want to get out the ring, they decide to stay in the ring because they're crystal clear on why they're fighting. And so that's why I asked you the question, what are you fighting for? What is it that is going to make it worth it for you to keep pushing forward? You know, when I think about, helping you to understand exactly what I mean by that, I think about a very cool story that one of my friends told me. I have a buddy by the name of Eric. He was actually an extraordinary wrestler in high school. As a matter of fact, he won state championships several times. And he said, Andy, man, he said, I'll never forget this. He said, I had another guy that him and I, we were acquaintances. We had no disputes. We had no tension between us. And he said that we rode the bus together. And he said, Andy, I'll never forget this, man. I was in high school and I had literally left school, got on the school bus, and he also rode the school bus with me. And we both are real cool with each other. He said hi to me. I said hi to him. And we both went and sat down on the bus, man. And he said, man, I don't know, man. You know how it is, man. These kids in high school, they're always looking for excitement. Sometimes they're unfortunately trying to start some trouble. And he said, man, while we were on the bus, the kids on the bus decided that they want to go ahead and instigate a fight. And so they went ahead and looked over at me and they said, oh, Eric, man. They said, Eric, I bet you can't beat up Johnny. And then they looked over at Johnny and they said, hey, Johnny, I bet you can't beat up Eric. At the beginning, both of us ignored them because, listen, we didn't have any issues. We didn't have any qualms. We didn't have any kind of dispute between us. So we thought it was no big deal. But the kids on the bus just kept instigating. So they're like, oh, Eric wrestles. I bet you he could beat up Johnny. And then other people were like, oh, well, Johnny is real strong. So I bet you he could beat up Eric. And he said, man, this thing just kept escalating. And then he said they started looking over at me and said, well, man, I bet you Eric is scared of Johnny. And then they looked over at Johnny and said, oh, I bet you Johnny's scared of Eric. And he said, of course, us being young boys, our egos kicked in. And he said, I found myself saying, I'm not scared of Johnny. And then Johnny found himself saying, I'm not scared of Eric. And so now all of a sudden, this tension is starting to build. And he says that, you know what, we thought that this would be the end of it. But unfortunately, both of us had the exact same bus stop. And so we both got off at the bus stop. And then sure enough, some of the kids, the main parties that were instigating, also got off on our stop. And so he said, I got off the bus and I started walking towards my house. And Johnny got off the bus and he started walking towards his house. But the kids wouldn't stop. And so they said, I told you Eric was scared. And then some of the kids were looking at Johnny and said, I told you Johnny was scared. And he said, us being boys and the tension starting to build up, he said, finally, I threw my book bag on the ground. He said, wait a second, I'm not scared of Johnny. And he said, Johnny threw his book bag on the ground. He said, wait a second, I'm not scared of Eric. And he says, next thing you know, he said, we had no beef, no qualms, and now we're turning around and we're facing each other. And he says, I'm telling Johnny, man, I'm not scared of you. And Johnny's like, I'm not scared of you either. And then all of a sudden now the kids are all around like, ooh, just instigating. And he said, next thing you know, we begin to grab each other and we're in a full out fight. He said, me and Johnny, man, we're fighting. He said, of course, you know, I wrestled, man. So I immediately grabbed him and I put him in one of my wrestling holds. And he said, man, I don't know what Johnny did, but he did something where he spun out of the hold that I had him. And he said, Andy, man, I'm telling you, out of nowhere, he just swung and bam, he punched me right in my face. And he said, Eric said, listen, man, Andy, you don't understand, man. When he punched me, he said, I felt this thing literally in my spine. I felt as if the world stopped. It hurt so bad because he caught me in the perfect place. It was almost like he hit a nerve. And he said, man, the crazy thing is once he hit me, the pain was so severe. The pain came through so much. He said, immediately I had to make a decision. Do I continue to fight him, or do I first of all try to figure out why we fight in the first place? And he said, man, I tell you, I was a phenomenal wrestler and I probably could have taken Johnny out. But he said, man, I'm telling you, when I experienced that pain, he said, I stopped in the middle of the fight. He said, literally, I said, what'd you do? He said, listen, man, Andy, I said, time out. I said, you said time out in the middle of a fight? He said, yes, man. He said, wait a second. He said, I said, time out, time out, time out, time out. And here's what he said. He said, I looked at Johnny and I looked around at the kids instigating. Here's what he said. He said, I said, wait a second, Johnny. He said, wait a second. Why are we fighting again? And he said, I had to ask Johnny that question because I realized that I didn't know why we were fighting in the first place. And Johnny looked back at Eric and said, man, I don't know. And he said, man, when we came to the realization that we had no real reason to be fighting, man, he said, man, we went ahead and shook hands, put our book bags back on our back, told the rest of the kids that were instigating, just leave us alone. And we both walked in our separate ways. And I was listening. I said, man, that's it. It ended that fast. He said, yeah, because we realized that we had no reason to be fighting. And so here's what I need you to understand. I share that story because I need you to understand this. You see, in life, you can't say time out in real life. You see, when life hits you and catches you by the blind side, when you find yourself in a difficult situation, you can't just say, wait a second, hold on, wait a minute, time out like Eric did. You see, and here's the other thing. When things get really, really difficult, when you find yourself in the midst of the fight, you better know exactly why you're fighting. You see, Eric and Johnny decided to walk away from that fight. And the reason why they decided to walk away is because they realized that they had no idea as to why they were fighting. And I personally believe that a lot of people walk away from their goals and their dreams. There's a lot of people who have a desire to write the book. A lot of people have a desire to start their own business. A lot of people have the desire to take their business to the next level. There's a lot of people who have a desire to go back to school and get another degree. A lot of people have a desire to get out of debt, to have a happy, fulfilling relationship. But what happens is they get in the middle of the fight, of the journey of trying to make this thing happen, of trying to write the book, of trying to start the business, of trying to change careers, of trying to have a fulfilling relationship. And so what happens is they get in the middle of the journey and they get in the middle of the process, and then they get hit by life. They get hit by life. They get hit by something totally unexpected. And in that moment, if they are not crystal clear on exactly why they decided to get in the fight in the first place, guess what they're likely to do? To just throw in the towel and just walk away from the fight. And so I want to talk to the person right now who is crystal clear on why you are deciding to get in the fight. And if you are not crystal clear as to why you're getting in the fight, I want you to spend some time and become very clear as to why you are deciding that you're going to get in the fight. Whatever your fight may be. Some of you are listening to me right now, and the fight that you're having right now is you're trying to make a transition from something that you're really happy about, that you want to be doing, that is really a hobby right now because it is not necessarily what's providing all of your income, and you want to make this thing become a full-time priority for you. You want this to be your new career path. And what I'm saying to you is that to get from where you are right now to where it is that you want to be, you're going to have to go in a fight. You're going to have to fight for your goals and your dreams. You're going to have to fight to make this thing happen. And what I'm saying to you is up front, you better establish up front why you're going to get in that fight so that you can go ahead and realize your goals and your dreams. Some of you right now, you have a business and you're trying to keep from closing down the business. You're trying to keep from going back to working a regular job, or you're trying to scale the business and take it to the next level. Understand this, that for you to keep your doors open, it's going to be a fight. In order for you to take yourself from maybe being under 6 figures to getting 6 figures, it's going to be a fight. To go from 6 figures to multiple 6 figures, it is going to be a fight. To go from multiple 6 figures to 7 figures, it is going to be a fight. And what I'm saying to you is before you get in that fight, you better know exactly why you're getting into that fight. Because when those times get difficult, it is going to be that reason that you've made the decision to get in the fight. That is what is ultimately going to see you through. You know, I laughed when my buddy Eric told me that story because I just thought it was so crazy that these two people were in the middle of a fight and out of nowhere just came to a realization that they had no good reason to be fighting and just decided to stop in the middle of a fight, put their book bags on, and walk their separate ways. But I got a valuable lesson from hearing him share that story. And the lesson that I realized is that if you're going to get in a fight in life, one of the things that's a prerequisite, one of the things that's absolutely required is you've got to establish up front why you're getting in the fight. So not only do you need to know what it is that you're pursuing in life, so I want you to think about what that is. And for some of you, it may be a business. For some of you, it may be a career change. For some of you, it may be to keep your marriage together. For some of you, it may be to get out of debt. For some of you, it may be possibly to lose weight. I want you to think about what your fight is, what your struggle is, what it is that it is that you're pursuing that you know is going to be a challenge. But what I want you to also do is to establish up front right now and say to yourself, you know, man, what is going to make it worth it for me to stay in the game? What is it going to make it worth it me to continue to fight? You know, Stephen Duncanson said this long time ago. He said, life is a battle for territory. And he said, once you stop fighting for what you want, what you don't want will automatically take over. But let me tell you this, that the only way that you're going to be able to stay in the fight and actually fight for what it is that you want is if you are crystal clear as to why you are getting in the fight. And so I want you to start thinking about what it is that you are fighting for on a daily basis as you get up every single day. You know, I remember years ago, I got introduced into a direct sales company. This was probably, I don't know, maybe over 15 years ago. And I remember being all gung-ho when I got into this direct sales company and establishing up front that, you know, that I was going to become one of the top producers in the company. And there was another gentleman who also got involved with this direct sales company around the same time that I did. And I remember many a times because him and I were coming through the ranks together and both of us hit one of the first positions in the company immediately at lightning speed. Both of us had qualified for most of the bonuses in the company. Both of us were in the process of building a team. Both of us were in the process of building our customer base. And both of us were being highlighted as two of the new up-and-comers that are likely to become great leaders in the company. And I'll never forget, there was one particular time that him and we had just finished going to a training, and we were sitting in the car, and we were listening to a Jim Rohn CD. For those of you who don't know who Jim Rohn is one of the, unfortunately, he's passed away. He's a phenomenal thought leader, a motivational speaker, but I would say more of a thought leader. Jim Rohn had a CD. It was called The Art of Exceptional Living. I would even recommend today that if you can, Jim Rohn, and it's Jim, last name Rohn, Rohn, you want to go ahead and look him up. And if you could get your hands on this audio program called The Art of Exceptional Living, you want to get your hands on it. I'm telling you, I have listened to that audio program over and over and over again. Jim Rohn has some most extraordinary things they say. It was Jim Rohn who said that we must all suffer from one of two pains in life. He said the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. He said the difference is discipline weighs ounces, but regret weighs tons. It was Jim Rohn who said, when the end comes for you, let it find you conquering a new mountain and not sliding down an old slippery slope. It was Jim Rohn who said this. Listen, he said, learn to work harder on yourself than you do on your job. He said, if you work hard on your job, then you'll make a living. But if you work hard on yourself, then you'll make a fortune. Jim Rohn said this. Listen now, Jim Rohn said that success is a few simple disciplines exercised every single day. And I'm telling you, this guy dropped golden nuggets over and over and over again. And so we're in the car, we're listening to Jim Rohn, and we're taking notes, and we're talking about our dreams. And we're like, man, we're both going to become regional vice presidents in this company. At that time, that was the highest position that you can get in the company. And we said, man, we already are kicking butt and taking names. We're making a name for ourselves, man. We're making great things happen. And I remember my buddy looking over at me. He said, Andy, man, he said, I'm serious about this, man. He said, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to be able to get to the top position in this company. And I looked over at him. I said, yeah, man, me too, me too. But let me tell you something. There was a major distinction between the two of us in the middle of that conversation. Because here's what I want you to realize. When we were having that conversation, this was the reality for my friend. My friend had barely graduated out of high school. And so he had basically gotten a GED, didn't even have a high school diploma. You see, my friend did not have a college education. You see, my friend, unfortunately, did not have anybody in his immediate family who had gotten a college education. You see, my friend had his very best friend was incarcerated at the time and serving over a 10-year sentence for drugs. And my friend also was in a situation that unfortunately most about everybody in his family were either in jail or unfortunately not making anything happen. And so for him, it was a matter of life and death when it came to this particular business. For him, there were no other options. For him, he had made the decision that he knew that the only way that he could accomplish what he wanted to accomplish in his life was he had to, not that he wanted to, but that he had to make this absolutely work for him. Now, let me bring you over on my end of the conversation. At the time when we were having the conversation, I had a undergraduate degree in corporate accounting. I had a master's degree in corporate accounting. I was a licensed CPA. I was working with one of the largest professional service firms in the world. My older brother had a college degree. I had multiple siblings that had college degree. I had many people around me that were positive influences. My mom had been an entrepreneur, a successful entrepreneur all my life, and I had witnessed her be a successful entrepreneur. I had many other people that could be mentors and help me out. I had a steady income, a steady paycheck coming in every 2 weeks. I had a nice significant amount of money in savings. And so even though I said it was something that I wanted to do, it wasn't something that I had to do. And so there was a major distinction between the both of us. You see, he had something to fight for. You see, that company for him and the way he showed up, that literally was a matter of him having success and him basically going to work a minimum wage job. You see, for me, it was the difference between me making additional income and having additional success, or just going ahead and continue to do what I was doing anyway, that was providing good income and making great things happen. And so needless to say, both of us, even though we were in the same conversation, we were having two different conversations. You see, he had something really, 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 really significant to be able to fight for. You see, he didn't want to be another statistic. He didn't want to end up in jail like his best friend. He didn't want to go to a minimum wage job and have to resort to literally saying to himself, man, that this is all that my life ever amounted to. Whereas for me, it was just something additional to do. And so let me just tell you something. Eventually, some things would show up in the process of us working the business. And for me, some other opportunities would show up. I would eventually be introduced to real estate investing. And so it was very easy for me to say, hey, you know what? I'll stop doing this and go into real estate. I was blessed and fortunate to do a lot of real estate transactions. and be able to have a over six-figure income in real estate at that time. But I tell you this, my friend, there were no other options. And so my friend and I, you know what, we eventually lost contact. But one day, several years later, I was flipping through a direct sales magazine, a magazine that highlights people who are having extraordinary success in the direct sales industry. And as I was flipping through the pages, in the middle of the magazine that I was flipping through, a full page spread of my friend that I was having that conversation with many years before being highlighted because he was a regional vice president in the company. And as I was looking at that full page spread, and as I was reflecting back on that conversation, I realized that for him, it was an absolute must. It wasn't even something that he wanted to do, that he was thinking about doing, but it was something that he absolutely had to do. You see, he was crystal clear as to why he was getting in the fight. And the moment he stepped foot into that arena, he had made the decision that the only way that he was going to step out of that arena is if he literally died. I know that today, till this day, and we are talking about well over 13 years later, he is still in the direct sales industry. He still holds that title of regional vice president. And a major distinction was because of the fight that he had and what it is that he was fighting for. And so here's what I say to you. I don't know what your goals and your dreams are. I don't know what it is that you're seeking to make happen in your life. I don't know what it is that you're aspiring to do. Maybe you're looking to start a business. Maybe you're looking to scale your business and take it to the next level. Maybe you're thinking about making a career change. Maybe you're trying to hold your marriage together. Maybe you're trying to lose weight. Maybe you're trying to get out of debt. Maybe you're trying to write a book. I don't know what it is that you're looking to do. But what I do know is if you have something that is worthy, if you've got a worthy goal, if you've got something that's worth pursuing, then most likely it's going to require a fight. You're going to have to fight in order to build the business. You're going to have to fight to finish the book. You're going to have to fight to be able to keep your marriage happy and fulfilling. You're going to have to fight to get out of debt. You're going to have to fight to do these things that you really want to do in your life. And what I'm saying to you is you will significantly increase your chances of winning the fight and accomplishing your goals and your dreams if you can establish up front exactly what you are fighting for. And so I'm going to ask you the question one more time. As you wake up every single day and you get ready to pursue whatever it is that you're pursuing in life, my question for you is this, and I want you to listen carefully. What are you fighting for? And here's what I've come to the realization. Most of us, unfortunately, will fight harder to keep from losing something that we already have than we will to fight to gain something that we don't have yet. And let me tell you what I mean by that. If right now you had $100,000 in your bank account and someone was trying to take that $100,000 away from you, I can tell you this, you would probably fight tooth and nail and do whatever you had to do to keep them from taking that money away from you. Why? Because this is something that you earned. This is something that you have. This is something that you're yours, and someone's trying to take it away from you. And if you want to go ahead and take away that analogy, if you want to take it away from money and put it on something else that you have, if someone was trying to take away your child, if someone was trying to take away your spouse, if someone was trying to take away something of significant value of you, you would fight tooth and nail to keep it. But if somebody told you, hey, this is what you got to do to acquire this. And if I told you, hey, this is what you got to do to acquire $100,000. This is what you got to do to acquire a spouse, a fulfilling marriage. This is what you got to do to acquire and become debt-free. This is what you got to do to acquire your goals and your dreams. That most of us, the moment things became very difficult, The moment that we find ourselves in a difficult type of situation, in the pursuit of something that we don't yet have, we throw in the towel and we easily make up an excuse. You know what? It's all right. I never had it in the first place. It's all right. I could just resort to what it is I'm doing. So most of us will fight harder to keep from losing something that we already have than we will to fight to acquire something that we haven't had yet. But let me tell you something about life. The people who have massive success are the people who know how to fight for something that they don't yet have. Those that can put in the same type of fight, the kind of fight that you put in to keep somebody from taking something from you, the people that have success are the people who can fight with that same kind of vigor, that same kind of gumption, that same type of focus, the person who could fight with that same amount of energy for something that they don't have yet. That's the people who have success in life. And what I'm saying to you is that the only way that you're going to be able to fight like that you're going to be able to fight with that level of focus, the way that you're going to be able to fight, the kind of fight that you stay in the arena of life, even when things difficult, is if you can establish up front right now, this moment, what is it that you're fighting for? And you got to become crystal clear on what you're getting in the fight for. You know, don't be like my buddy Eric and get in the middle of a fight and then ask yourself the question, wait a second, why am I fighting again? No. I love when he shared that story with me. I had me cracking up, but I tell you this, it was a valuable lesson. And what I found out is that if you're going to get in a fight, and I'm telling you something, if you want to make some great things happen in your life, it is going to be a fight. But if you are going to get in the fight, what I'm saying to you is establish up front exactly what are you fighting for. And if you can become crystal clear on exactly what it is that you're fighting for, I tell you, you will show up in the middle of that fight entirely different. You will show up for your goals and your dreams entirely different. And you will show up for your life entirely different. Listen, this has been Andy Henriquez. I tell you, I am so grateful and thankful that all of you decided to show up and be a part of Thursday night Show Up for Your Life motivational live stream and conference call. And like always, I want to tell you this. You got to show up for your lives, ladies and gentlemen. Not only do you have to show up, but you got to be willing to fight and stay in the middle of the ring. You got to show up for your lives, ladies and gentlemen, because if you don't show up and make the things happen that you need to make happen, if you don't show up and continue to fight for your goals and your dreams, if you don't show up for your life, then guess what? Nobody else will. All right. Well, listen, here's a couple of things I want to share with you. If you haven't done this yet, for those of you, if you haven't had an opportunity yet, here's what I want you to do. I want you to grab a copy of my book. It's called Show Up for Your Life, 7 Principles to Living an Extraordinary Life. My book is available on Amazon.com. It's available on BarnesandNobles.com. And you can also go to ShowUpForYourLifeBook.com. ShowUpForYourLifeBook.com. Listen, get a copy of the book. I share 7 very powerful principles that I believe is going to transform your life. There's some extraordinary stories in there that are going to inspire you and motivate you to just go from just going through the motion in life and to show up in life at an entirely different level. I'm talking about do things that you've been desiring to do, but you just haven't been able to do it. I'm telling you that I've got some principles, some stories, and some exercises and techniques that you're going to be able to implement in your life that's really going to be able to help you to accomplish your goals and your dreams. So that's something I want you to do. The other thing is, as many of you know, one of the things that I specialize is I help speakers and coaches and entrepreneurs to be able to figure out what their signature story is and to be able to develop and work on their signature story in such a way that they're able to deliver their story in such a way that they can attract high-paying customers and clients and be able to have much more greater impact when they address audiences and the people that they're speaking to. And so if you're interested in learning how you and I could work together and you'd like an opportunity for us to talk about some coaching opportunities, you can go to a website called discoverycallwithandy.com. Once again, that is discoverycallwithandy.com. Fill out the very quick questionnaire there, and then someone from my team will go ahead and contact you and schedule you for a quick a 15-minute conversation with myself or with somebody on my team so we could learn a little more about you and see if there's anything that I could offer you as far as coaching to help you to really master your story and produce the type of results that you really want to produce. And of course, like always, I'm going to go ahead and see if I can stick around for a little bit. For those of you, I know those of you who are listening in right now via the live stream, it's a little difficult for us to interact, but there are people who are tuning in right now via the conference call line. And for those people, what I'm going to do is we're going to go ahead and open up the conference call line. I'm going to put my phone on speakerphone for the people who are listening in right now via the people who are listening in right now via the live stream, so that you can hear the comments or question. And so for those of you who are listening in right now via the conference call,